There's something uniquely soul-crushing about being the family disappointment. It's not always spoken aloud. Sometimes it's a glance at family dinner, a sigh when you speak, a joke that cuts a little too deep. But every so often, someone puts it into words so sharp, they leave a scar you didn't know was there until it started bleeding. I'm Aaron, 28 years old, the youngest of 3 siblings, and apparently, the only one who never quite fit the mold. At least that's how my parents made it seem, growing up. My brother David was the star athlete, the golden boy who went into finance and bought his first condo at 25. My sister Emily, the sweetheart, top of her class, picture-perfect smile, always polite. Now she's the bride-to-be, about to marry a man my parents absolutely adore. And me? I was the artsy one, the weird one, the phase that never ended. I studied photography, worked freelance gigs while trying to build a name for myself, and lived in a one-bedroom apartment that leaked when it rained. To them, I was the one who chose struggle. No amount of exhibitions or client work ever changed that in their eyes. My mother even once told me, "We just worry you'll end up alone, Aaron," as if failure was a default outcome for people who didn't own a briefcase. I've grown a thick skin over the years. Mostly. But the truth is, I stopped going to family events for a while. The tension, the subtle digs, the way conversations died when I entered the room, it wore me down. But Emily? She was different. She always made time for me. When we were kids, she used to sneak into my room with a blanket so we could watch dumb cartoons together when I couldn't sleep. She was kind. And even when we grew apart a bit as adults, she still texted me on my birthday, still checked in after Dad's surgery, still showed up to my gallery opening when no one else did. So when she invited me to her wedding, I didn't hesitate. I got the invite in the mail, handwritten by her. A personal note inside. "It wouldn't be the same without you, Aaron. Please come. Love you always." So I went. I arrived early, hoping to catch a quiet moment with her before the chaos began. The venue was gorgeous, an old vineyard-turned-event space, with lanterns hanging from the trees and soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. People milled about in suits and cocktail dresses, sipping champagne. I wore the only suit I owned. A little snug at the shoulders, but clean. Respectable. I even shaved. It didn't take long for the first sign of what kind of day it would be. "Aaron." My mother's voice came from behind me, already laced with surprise. "You actually came. Nice to see you too," I said, forcing a smile. She leaned in, kissed my cheek, and then held me at arm's length as if examining a questionable antique. "You look healthy. That was mom speak for you've gained weight." I let it slide. Dad showed up next. A nod. A handshake. Classic Dad. No warmth, just formal acknowledgement. "Hope you behaved on the drive up." "I always behave when I'm alone," I replied, half joking. He didn't laugh. I made my way inside, scanning for Emily. No sign of her yet. Instead, I ran into David, who clapped me on the back a little too hard. "Well, if it isn't the bohemian bachelor himself. Still trying out that nickname, huh?" I said. 10 years later. He grinned. "Some things never go out of style. Like your beard. You look like you just got done busking outside a Whole Foods." Appreciate the feedback. David had always loved poking at me. Harmless jabs, he'd claim. Just brotherly banter. But there's a difference between teasing and targeted humiliation. He knew where to cut. He always had. Then I saw him. The groom. Ethan. Let me tell you something about Ethan. On paper, he was everything you'd want in a husband. Tall, clean-cut, confident, with a law degree and a Rolex. But behind that crisp tux and perfect hair, something always felt off. Smug. Like he saw people as props in the movie of his life. We'd met only twice before, once at Emily's engagement party and again at a family barbecue. Both times, he was civil but dismissive. Talked over me. Asked if I was still doing that art thing. And once made a joke about photographers being failed painters with a camera. So when he walked in and spotted me standing by the bar, I could already see it in his eyes, the calculation, the smirk, like he was deciding just how far he could go. "Well, he said loudly, drawing the attention of several guests. Didn't think they'd invite the family disappointment." I froze. The air shifted. Conversations dipped. A few people gave polite, awkward laughs, unsure if it was a joke. I tried to smile it off, but my jaw clenched on its own. "Ethan," I said, nodding. "Nice to see you too." He wasn't done. "You don't belong here," he said, still loud. "Honestly, I figured you'd skip it. Guess even starving artists need free food and open bars, huh? My heart pounded. I felt a dozen eyes on me, waiting to see how I'd respond. My father looked away, pretending not to hear. David just chuckled and muttered something to his wife. My mother gave me a tight-lipped smile and sipped her wine. And that's when I realized. They weren't surprised. They'd heard this before, maybe even laughed along with it. I turned toward the main entrance, jaw still tight, blood rushing in my ears. Then I saw Emily. She was just coming down the stairs, radiant in her dress, her smile lighting up the room, until her eyes landed on me. Her smile faltered. She must have sensed it. Something was off. Her steps slowed. Ethan turned to her with a laugh and said, "Babe, didn't think they'd invite your charity case of a brother." Emily's face froze. That was it. That was the exact moment I knew things weren't as perfect between them as they seemed. Because in that split second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt. Shock. Maybe both. Ethan turned back to me and gave a dramatic point. "You don't belong here, leave." I felt the anger boil up in my chest, but I didn't let it spill yet. Instead, I nodded slowly, took a breath. My fingers curled into fists at my sides. I turned to Emily, who was now standing still, confused, mouth slightly open. "I will," I said calmly. Then I paused, smiled. But first, I glanced around the room. "Want to meet the girl he's been having an affair with for the last 6 months?" That's when he went pale. And that's when she stood up. "But we'll get there. Let me take you back 6 months earlier, because if you think this started at the wedding, you're dead wrong." The unraveling began long before the white dress and champagne, and trust me, I didn't plan any of this. Not at first. It started with a photograph. 6 months earlier, I was back in the city, crouched behind my camera lens, doing what I did best, capturing people when they thought no one was watching. That's the thing about weddings and engagement shoots. Everyone's pretending. Perfect angles, forced smiles, curated happiness. But sometimes, if you wait long enough, you catch something real, something raw. That's what happened the first time I saw Ethan with her. It was a cold March afternoon, windy and gray, the kind of day where everything feels like it's holding its breath. I was hired to shoot engagement photos for a couple I barely knew, friends of friends, a gig that paid just enough to cover rent and groceries. We'd agreed to meet in a tucked-away plaza downtown, a spot with ivy-covered brick and soft lighting that made everyone look like a magazine cover. I arrived early to scout the angles. That's when I saw them. Ethan, and a woman who wasn't Emily. They were tucked into the corner of a cafe across the street, behind a window fogged with condensation. At first, I didn't register it. Just another couple out for coffee. But then I saw Ethan lean in, too close. The woman laughed, touched his wrist. He reached across the table, brushed her hair behind her ear like he owned her. Not just flirty. Intimate. I snapped a photo. Reflex. I shouldn't have. I knew that. But something in me clicked. The tension, the sneaking, the angle. It was instinctual. A habit from years of watching moments unfold from behind the lens. The couple I was waiting for arrived a few minutes later, and I pushed Ethan out of my mind. Mostly. But that photo? It stayed on my SD card. I didn't say anything. Not then. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe there was some explanation. I didn't want to start something without proof. So I sat on it. But once you see the cracks, you can't unsee them. A few weeks later, I was invited to a family dinner to celebrate Emily's bridal shower. Even though it had been a women-only event. I think my mother just wanted an excuse to parade Emily around and talk about flower arrangements in front of people who'd pretend to care. I almost didn't go, but Emily texted me directly. "Please come. I need someone sane there." So I went. Dinner was at our parents' place, the same house I grew up in. The house that now felt more like a museum of someone else's life. Everything spotless, polished, sterile. The only evidence of my childhood was a single crooked photo of the three of us kids on the hallway wall. David in his football jersey, Emily in a frilly dress, and me in a hoodie with paint on the sleeves. Mom used to say she kept it up for symmetry. The dinner started civil. Polite laughter, wine, talk about honeymoon plans and catering costs. Then Ethan started in. "So, Aaron," he said, swirling his wine like he'd seen it in a movie. "Still doing the whole starving artist routine?" I glanced at Emily, but she was focused on cutting her chicken. My mother gave a little snort. David smirked. "I'm managing," I said. "Just booked a magazine spread, actually." "Which magazine?" David asked, without interest. Indie Photography Quarterly, I replied. They're doing a feature on urban composition. Oh, Ethan said, his voice dripping with mock sincerity. I thought that folded. It didn't. Could have sworn I read that somewhere. You know that moment when you look around a table and realize no one's on your side? That's what it felt like. Like I was the outsider crashing a party I wasn't meant to be at. I chewed the inside of my cheek and tried to stay quiet. Then Ethan said something that made my fork pause midair. You know, he chuckled, it's honestly inspiring. Sticking with something even when it's clearly not working. Takes guts. I didn't answer. My heart was pounding. I glanced at Emily again, and this time she looked at me, just for a second. Her expression was unreadable. Then she looked away. I left early that night. No one stopped me. After that, things snowballed. Emily stopped texting as often. When I asked if she wanted to grab coffee, she said she was really slammed with wedding stuff. I didn't push. Maybe she was. But it felt like a door was slowly closing. Then came the engagement photos. Emily asked me to take them. Privately, not through my business. I trust you more than some stranger, she'd said. And I want the photos to feel real. I said yes, because deep down I wanted her to see that I wasn't a failure. That I could do something beautiful for her. Maybe even remind her of who we used to be. The shoot was scheduled for a Sunday in May, at a nature reserve just outside the city. Golden hour. Perfect lighting. I arrived early to set up. They were late. When they finally showed, Ethan was on his phone, barely glanced at me. Emily looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. Like someone had been draining her little by little. We shot for an hour. They posed. They smiled. They kissed on cue. But something was off. There was no warmth. No playfulness. When I asked them to laugh together, only Emily tried. Ethan just looked bored. As I packed up, Emily lingered. Thank you, she said softly. I really appreciate you doing this. Of course, I replied. You okay? She hesitated. Just tired. Then Ethan called out from the car. Let's go. I have that dinner with the partners. Her face shut down. Take care, Aaron, she said quickly, then jogged off. I stood there, alone in the parking lot, camera in hand, a sick feeling blooming in my gut. That night, I looked through the photos. Most were usable, some even beautiful. But one stuck out. A candid shot. Emily had turned to look at Ethan during a break. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at his phone, smirking. The expression on Emily's face? That broke me. It wasn't love. It was resignation. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the woman from the cafe. The subtle digs. Emily's tired eyes. So I went back. I found the original photo. Zoomed in. Enhanced. And there it was. A name tag. The woman's name. Vanessa. It was blurry, but legible. Vanessa. I didn't recognize her. So I did what any stubborn little brother with an internet connection and too much time would do. I found her. Took a few days of digital digging. She worked at Ethan's firm. A paralegal. Young. Pretty. Posted photos of coffee cups and sunsets and brunches with captions like, "Don't let the world dull your sparkle." Classic. And then I found the photo. Buried on her Instagram. Posted 3 weeks after the cafe sighting. A wine bar. 2 glasses. A man's hand reaching across the table, gently holding hers. No face in the frame, but I recognized the watch. Ethan's Rolex. The caption? Some people make you feel like home. I screenshotted it. Then another post. A mirror selfie in a hotel room. Her shirt on, a man's suit jacket draped over the chair in the background. Same watch, glinting in the mirror's edge. Another screenshot. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I needed more. I called in a favor from a friend who worked security at that very hotel. Slipped him the date and time. A few days later, he emailed me quietly. A blurry security still of Ethan walking out of the elevator, arm in arm with Vanessa. Time-stamped. No room for doubt. My hands shook as I saved the file. I wanted to drive to Emily's place that night. Wanted to knock on her door, shove the photos in her face, scream, "You're marrying a liar." But something stopped me. This wasn't about being right. This was about her. Emily. My sister. The one who used to braid my hair when we played pretend. Who helped me pick out my first camera. Who showed up when no one else did. She deserved to see it clearly. Undeniably. Publicly. She deserved the truth, but on her terms. So I waited. Waited for the moment. And that moment came on the day of her wedding, when her soon-to-be husband pointed at me and said, "You don't belong here." That's when I knew. It was time. I turned to her. I said, "I will. But first, Want to meet the girl he's been having an affair with for the last 6 months? Gasps rippled across the room. Heads turned. Ethan's face drained of color. Emily froze. And from the back corner of the room, a chair scraped loudly against the floor. Vanessa stood up. She was here. And she wasn't alone. When Vanessa stood up, the room collectively held its breath. I hadn't planned that part, her being there. It was a gamble. But when you play your cards right, sometimes the house folds before you even lay your hand on the table. She looked calm. Too calm. Wearing a pale blue dress, hair curled neatly around her shoulders, she stood with a soft elegance that felt eerily composed for someone whose presence had just detonated a wedding. She wasn't flustered. She wasn't embarrassed. She was ready. Ethan's lips moved, trying to form words, but nothing came out. Emily's eyes darted between us. Her veil slipped a little over her shoulder, forgotten. What is he talking about? Emily's voice cracked, barely audible. I didn't say anything. I just looked at Vanessa. She gave me a nod, almost like a cue. Then she stepped forward, slow and sure, like she was walking onto a stage. Every eye in the room followed her. The music had stopped. The clink of silverware, the chatter, gone. Just silence. She stopped beside Ethan, turned to Emily, and said, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." Emily blinked. Ethan finally spoke. "Vanessa, what are you doing?" Vanessa ignored him. "I didn't know he was engaged at first," she said gently. "But when I found out, I broke it off. Then he told me he was ending things with you. That he was only staying for appearances, for the family." "Stop talking," Ethan hissed. "He said you were emotionally distant," Vanessa continued, her voice breaking a little, "that you only cared about the wedding. He said it was over in everything but name." I believed him. Emily staggered backward like someone had pushed her. Ethan reached for her. "It's not true. Please, she's lying." Vanessa looked at him, finally, eyes cold. "I'm not the only one," she said. And that's when a second woman stood up from the other side of the room. I hadn't seen her before. No one had. She'd blended in. Younger. Sharper eyes. She didn't speak. Just held up her phone, screen flashing a picture. A hotel lobby. Ethan. Her. Ethan looked like he was going to vomit. Emily didn't cry. Not yet. She just stared. Face blank. Hollow. And then she turned to me. But this part isn't about her. Because after that moment, after I dropped the truth like a stone into a still pond, I wasn't the hero. I wasn't the vindicated younger brother. I was the villain. The wedding didn't end in a dramatic scene like in the movies. There were no thrown glasses or screamed ultimatums. It fizzled. Quiet. Awkward. Emily walked out, her train dragging behind her like it weighed 100 pounds. Ethan tried to follow. Someone stopped him. Maybe David, maybe Dad. I don't remember. Vanessa vanished. And I was left standing there, alone. No one clapped. No one thanked me. Not even Emily. My mom didn't speak to me as I walked out. David muttered. "You couldn't just keep your mouth shut for once." By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing with messages. Some from extended family, saying I ruined the most important day of Emily's life. Others telling me I should have come to her privately, that I was selfish, dramatic, jealous. It hurt. Worse than I expected. I thought I'd feel justified. Righteous. Instead, I felt hollow. And that's when the real silence began. Emily didn't reach out. Days passed. Then weeks. I didn't know where she went. I heard rumors. She'd moved back into our parents' house. That she quit her job. That she was processing. But from her, nothing. I started doubting myself. Did I really do the right thing? Maybe I should have just let her find out on her own. Maybe I should have waited. Maybe I'd embarrassed her in front of everyone she loved. Maybe I really was a disappointment. I fell into a routine. Woke up, ate toast, stared at my camera gear, and couldn't bring myself to use it. I turned down shoots. Said no to gigs. People thought I was busy. In demand. Truth was, I just didn't care anymore. One night, I got a call from my mom. It had been over a month since the wedding. "I hope you're happy," she said. I didn't say anything. "She's not eating. She barely speaks. You humiliated her. I exposed a cheater. You could have told her privately. She wouldn't have believed me. You don't know that." "No," I said, "I don't." But I wasn't going to wait around and let her marry someone who disrespected her. She's family, Aaron. You don't throw family under the bus. I laughed, bitter. "Funny. That's exactly what you all did to me." Click. She hung up. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, in the dark, and cried. Not because I regretted it, but because I felt like I'd lost everything anyway. That was the bottom. That was the point where I started questioning not just what I did, but who I was. Why I kept trying to be part of a family that never truly saw me. Why I kept showing up, hoping for approval that was never coming. And that's where something started to shift. Because once you hit the bottom, the only direction left is up. It started with an email from the editor of the photography magazine I'd mentioned at dinner, the one Ethan mocked. They loved my urban shots, wanted to feature them in their fall issue. A full spread. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I said yes. Then a former client messaged me. She was launching a startup, needed branding shots, could pay well, asked if I was available. I almost said no, but something in me whispered, try? So I did. I showed up. I shot the photos. They were good, better than good. She sent me a message the next day. You made me look like I believe in myself again. Thank you. That stuck with me, because I realized I had that gift, not just to capture what people saw, but to reveal what they needed to. More work followed. Word spread. I started booking consistently. Then an online platform featured one of my photos in a 30 under 30 creatives to watch list. Traffic exploded. My inbox flooded. I redesigned my website, hired someone to help manage bookings, started saying yes more often. I even rented a studio, a real one, nothing fancy, but mine. For the first time in years, I felt like I had something that belonged to me. But the biggest shift wasn't external. It was inside. I stopped waiting for my parents to be proud, stopped craving David's validation, stopped thinking of myself as the family failure. Because the truth is, I was never the problem. I just didn't fit their mold. And maybe I never would. But that didn't mean I was broken. One morning, a few months after the wedding, I got a text from Emily. Just one word. Coffee. My heart leapt. I stared at the message for a full minute before replying. Always. We met at a small place downtown. No crowd. No performance. Just her. She looked different. Not worse. Not better. Just real. Tired, but present. We sat. Silence for a moment. Then she said, I wanted to hate you. I nodded. I was humiliated. Blindsided. Everyone was whispering. It felt like I was drowning in judgment. I know, I said quietly. But then I saw the photos. I looked up. She pulled out her phone, showed me the screenshots I'd sent anonymously after the wedding. The hotel, the watch, the other woman, all of it. I sat in bed and just stared at them, over and over. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me just wanted to disappear. I'm sorry, I whispered. She shook her head. Don't be. You didn't lie. He did. We sipped coffee in silence. Then she reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Thank you for saving me. That moment, that made all of it worth it. But that's not where the story ends. Because Ethan, he didn't go quietly. And what happened next? Let's just say, some people don't know when to quit. I didn't expect to see Ethan again. After that wedding, I thought he'd vanish, tail tucked between his legs, reputation in shambles. Maybe he'd move out of state, ghost the family, change firms, start over somewhere else where no one knew the name of the woman he cheated on. But Ethan wasn't that type. He didn't disappear. He retaliated. It started subtly, just whispers at first. A mutual friend from Emily's college days told her she'd heard some things from people at Ethan's law firm. That I was unwell. That I'd staged the whole wedding stunt out of jealousy. That I had a history of emotional instability. And I'd manipulated Vanessa into lying. Emily dismissed it, at first. But then came the online comments. On my website. On my Instagram. On photography forums. Anonymous usernames posting things like, this guy sabotaged his sister's wedding for clout, and he photoshops fake cheating pics to ruin lives. At first, I assumed it was just trolls. The internet is the internet. Then a potential client emailed me saying they were concerned about the allegations. Allegations. That word froze me. I followed the IP trail of one of the nastier comments. I'm no tech wizard, but I know people who are. The location? Within 10 miles of Ethan's firm. It wasn't proof, not enough to go to court, but enough for me to know. Ethan was trying to bury me, which meant he wasn't done. But neither was I. Because what Ethan didn't know, what no one knew, was that in the time since the wedding, I'd changed. I wasn't the overlooked little brother anymore. I wasn't the black sheep hiding behind a camera. I had something now. Leverage. Influence. Contacts. And for the first time in my life, a network of people who believed in me. So I decided I wouldn't just sit back and defend myself. I was going to burn him down. But carefully. Slowly. Let him think he'd won. Let him get comfortable. Let him sweat. I started gathering. The first ally was, unexpectedly, Vanessa. After the wedding, she disappeared. Left the firm. Moved in with her sister in another city, according to one of her old co-workers. But when I reached out, via a polite, carefully worded email, she responded within a day. "I've been waiting for this," she wrote. We scheduled a video call. She looked healthier, more grounded. She apologized again for her part in the mess, but I told her it wasn't about that anymore. "I need your help," I said, "but only if you're willing." "I want to make things right," she said. "He lied to me too. I should have listened to my gut. What do you still have? Emails, texts, photos, anything?" She nodded. "I have everything." And she did. Screenshots of him calling Emily deadweight. Recordings of late-night calls where he bragged about manipulating women at work. An old email he sent her accidentally that was meant for someone else, laying out some shady financial stuff from his firm's internal accounts. Kickbacks, client funneling, possible fraud. I told her not to send anything yet. We'll need that later. For now, just sit tight. And be ready. The second ally was Emily. It took a bit longer with her. We were rebuilding slowly. Still seeing each other weekly. Still navigating the wounds. I didn't want to rope her into anything unless I knew she was ready. But then she found out something. Ethan had kept a storage unit. She found the bill in the pile of joint accounts they never closed. $172 a month to some warehouse locker on the edge of town. She'd never seen it. Had no idea what was inside. "I want to open it," she told me. "I'll go with you." We did. The unit wasn't locked under Ethan's name. He'd used his cousin's ID, but he'd never changed the payment method. Lazy. Typical. The clerk barely blinked when Emily showed ID and explained the connection. We signed some forms. Got the key. Inside. Evidence. Years' worth. Old phones. Burner phones. Stacks of documents. Flash drives. Even a printed list of passwords. Like some paranoid wannabe Bond villain who didn't trust the cloud. Emily stood there, stunned. "What is all this?" "Proof," I said. "We went through everything. It took days. And what we found, well, let's just say Ethan wasn't just cheating. He was playing people. He'd been dating multiple women at once, some of whom worked for him. He had emails bragging about it to college buddies. Photos of him with a client's daughter, who was barely 20. Even text logs where he joked about keeping the backup girl around, in case Emily ever grew a backbone. Emily threw up in my bathroom after reading that. But she didn't collapse. She didn't fall apart. She sat on the floor, wiping her mouth, eyes red, and said, "Let's destroy him." I'd never loved her more. The third ally was someone Ethan never saw coming. His old mentor, Mr. Halbert, an older partner at the firm who'd always had a bit of a moral compass, even in a sea of sharks. I reached out to him through one of my freelance contacts, his daughter, actually, who I'd done a portrait session for months ago. We met in a quiet cafe, just off Main. He wore a beige trench coat and spoke like he was always one word away from a courtroom objection. "I'm only here because of my daughter," he said, "and because I've had suspicions about Ethan for a long time. But I'm not putting myself on the line without something concrete." So I showed him. One file. A single PDF Vanessa had pulled. A financial statement Ethan had altered to hide his bonus from a whistleblower settlement. Fraud. Plain and simple. Illegal. Halbert stared at it. Then he exhaled. Long measured. "All right," he said. "I'm in." And that's when the plan clicked into place. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice. And maybe a little bit of redemption. I set everything up like a project shoot. Folders. Timelines. Color-coded tabs. We weren't rushing. We were building a case. Not for court, at least not yet, but for exposure. Precision. Maximum impact. Step 1. Reputation. I reached out to every woman Ethan had been involved with. Vanessa gave me most of the names. Many didn't reply. A few did. One in particular, Alyssa, was more than willing to talk. "He messed up my career," she told me over Zoom. "Used me. Then blacklisted me when I tried to walk away." I asked if she'd be willing to speak publicly. Her reply? "I've been waiting for that chance for 2 years." We scheduled an interview. I filmed it myself. Clean lighting, soft background, tight audio. She told her story. Calm. Measured. No drama, just truth. Step 2. Leverage. Vanessa's financial files, combined with the documents from the storage unit and Halbert's inside knowledge, painted a picture of internal firm corruption. Ethan wasn't the only one involved, but he was a key player. If this hit the right outlets, the firm would have no choice but to act. Step 3. Timing. I wanted this to hit when Ethan couldn't hide, when he was at his peak. He'd recently been nominated for some Young Lawyer of the Year award, complete with a banquet, speeches, local press. It was the perfect moment. Everyone watching. All eyes on him. So we circled the date. Emily bought a dress. I booked a camera crew under a fake media company name. Vanessa sent me a Dropbox folder titled Justice.zip, and I prepared the final piece. A portfolio. One printed, leather-bound document with everything. Testimonies. Screenshots. Photo stills. Financial fraud summaries. Quotes from past victims. Anonymized, but pointed. A curated dossier of Ethan's double life. One copy for the firm. One copy for the press. And one for Ethan himself. But the best part? That came last. Because at that banquet, when Ethan stepped on stage to accept his award, basking in fake applause and plastic smiles, he wouldn't know that someone in the crowd had already received the file, and someone else was about to stand up and speak. But that part, that's coming. Because revenge? Revenge is best served at room temperature with a microphone. Ethan stood on the stage like a man who believed he'd won. The ballroom lights shimmered against the polished glass of his award, Young Lawyer of the Year, 2025. His tuxedo was spotless. His hair was neatly parted. The crowd before him, a sea of fellow attorneys, politicians, reporters, and board members, was exactly the kind of audience he'd always craved. He held the mic like he was born for it. "I'm honored," he began, his voice smooth as ever. "Really, I am. This award means a lot to me. Not just professionally, but personally. Because I've always believed that integrity and perseverance are the cornerstones of success." Emily and I stood near the back of the ballroom, behind the press row. She wore a deep emerald dress, simple, elegant, sharp. Her expression was unreadable. Focused. Me? I was behind a camera. Not recording for a client this time. This footage was for us. To every young lawyer out there, Ethan continued. Who's been told you're too ambitious, too bold, too much? Keep going. You'll prove them wrong. I heard someone scoff nearby. Alyssa. She was seated a few tables away, expression calm, hands folded in her lap. Vanessa sat beside her, lips pressed together, eyes never leaving the stage. It was almost time. As I accept this award, Ethan went on, raising his voice just slightly. I want to thank the people who've supported me along the way. My mentors, my colleagues, and then, right on cue, the projector screen behind him lit up. It started as a flicker, then a full image. A black and white photograph. Ethan, in a hotel lobby, arm in arm with Vanessa. He didn't notice it at first. His eyes were focused on the audience. But the crowd noticed. Heads turned. Whispers rose. Then the next slide. A series of text messages, crude, mocking, demeaning. His words. To multiple women. All time-stamped. All traceable. Then screenshots of financial records. A chart labeled falsified client kickbacks. Then the audio file began to play. I don't care if she finds out. Ethan's voice crackled from the speakers. Emily's too nice. She won't leave. Worst case scenario, I make her think she's the problem. The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan froze. What? He muttered, turning toward the screen. Someone in the audience gasped. Another stood up, pointing. That's you. That's your voice. He spun back around, mic still in hand. This is a joke. Someone's sabotaging me. This is fake. You all know me. That's when Mr. Halberd rose from his seat near the front. I did know you, he said, voice calm but stern. And I'm ashamed I ever vouched for you. He held up a folder, the same dossier I'd compiled. One of 3. This isn't sabotage. This is truth. The room erupted. Flashes from cameras. Reporters whispering frantically into their phones. Lawyers murmuring to each other, checking documents, opening their own copies of the folder, passed discreetly under chairs. And Ethan? He cracked. I want that shut off, he barked at the AV tech. The technician just shrugged. We were told to run this file by the organizers. The organizers, of course, had no idea. But the file had been timed, embedded, and queued without anyone suspecting. Because sometimes the best revenge is giving someone just enough rope to hang themselves, with the lights turned on. Emily stepped forward then, walking slowly down the center aisle, heels clicking against the marble floor. Every eye turned to her. Ethan's jaw dropped. Emily, what are you doing here? She stopped halfway. Watching the truth come out, she said evenly, I almost married you. He tried to approach, still holding the mic like it was a shield. This isn't real. Someone's out to ruin me. I can fix this. Just come with me. We can talk. She took one step back. You said I was deadweight, she said. You called me a placeholder. You told other women I was too boring to notice you're cheating. And when my brother exposed you, you tried to ruin him instead of apologizing. Ethan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Alyssa rose next. I lost my job because of you. Then Vanessa. You lied to everyone. Then a fourth woman stood. I didn't know her name, but her eyes were full of fire. I dated you in 2021. You said you were single. You weren't. It spread like a wave. Murmurs turned to accusations. Every table seemed to have someone with a story. Someone Ethan had dismissed, disrespected, or discarded. He staggered back, clutching the mic tighter. I've done nothing illegal. And that's when the final slide flashed on the screen. Internal firm memo, pending review of ethics violation, Ethan Prescott. Sent 2 days earlier by Halbert, triggered by the financial evidence I'd helped compile. The firm had no choice but to investigate once it reached a senior partner's desk. The MC stepped up behind Ethan, gently taking the mic from his hand. Mr. Prescott, he said, we're going to need you to leave. Security was already moving. Ethan tried to protest, to stand tall, to salvage something, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of his own downfall playing behind him. And then he was escorted out. Not in handcuffs. Not yet. But disgraced. Thoroughly. Permanently. The room slowly calmed. The screen faded to black. The air changed. I turned off my camera. Emily walked back toward me, shoulders straight, chin lifted, her expression unreadable. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. But as she reached me, she whispered, "Thank you." I nodded. "You okay?" "I will be." The next morning, the headlines exploded. Award-winning attorney exposed for fraud and affairs at ceremony. Anonymous source drops bombshell at legal gala. Scandal erupts at Lawyer of the Year event. And the best part? I never appeared in a single article. Because I didn't need to. I wasn't doing this for recognition. I did it for the sister who used to climb into my bed with a flashlight and a bag of M&Ms when I had nightmares. I did it for the younger version of myself who always walked into family dinners expecting a seat at the table and left feeling like an unwanted guest. I did it because sometimes telling the truth isn't enough. Sometimes you have to show it. A week later, Ethan was placed on unpaid suspension. A month after that, charges were filed for document forgery and financial misconduct. His career? Over. His network? Gone. The firm? Scrambling for damage control. And me? I kept my head down. Kept working. Kept creating. The magazine spread came out. More clients. More recognition. But the biggest win wasn't professional. It was personal. Emily started smiling again. We had dinners, just the two of us. No passive-aggressive digs. No tension. We laughed. We remembered who we used to be. And one night, after finishing a shoot, I got a text from her. You were never the disappointment. You were the only one who saw things clearly. That meant more to me than any award. Because revenge isn't just about bringing someone down. It's about lifting yourself up, reclaiming your story. And when I looked in the mirror now, I didn't see a black sheep anymore. I saw a man who told the truth, who stood up for what mattered, who exposed a lie in front of everyone who needed to see it. Because when someone says, you don't belong here, the best answer is, then I'll build a place where I do.